Hey guys, welcome back to Honey in the Rock. I'm Sophie, and this is Macey.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, of course. I love the opportunity to talk about the Lord. So,
Yes. I don't know very many people. I know one person named Macey, and it's like my childhood best friend. And so I get so excited every time I hear somebody else.
I love that.
Is it a popular name where you're from?
Honestly, not really. I feel like I know like a handful of Macy's, but it's not like super popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my friend Macey's like Macie.
I don't know really any other Macy's that are EY because I'm EY.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So fun. So random. Um, and like I don't know any other Sophies. I think I've met like two
I
before.
think I know one Sophie.
Then I'm
Honestly.
like, oh, at college I'll definitely meet other people. I'm like, nope, just kidding. Okay, tell us a little about yourself. Where are you from?
Yeah, I am born and raised Ohio girl and probably will be a Midwest girl for the rest of my life. I don't know. I graduated in May from Ohio State, and right now I'm doing social media full time, and I'm also a part time barista. Life looks a lot different for me than it did a year ago, but I'm loving it. And just kind of like navigating life in that post grad season, which is exciting, terrifying, all the things. So, yeah.
That's so fun. I always said like I want to work at a coffee shop. I don't know how to do any of that, but I'm like that would be so much fun.
It is a lot of fun, and I love being able to just like serve people, honestly.
Yeah,
So,
that's really
yeah.
sweet. What's your favorite coffee?
It changes a lot, but I love just like a classic pour over, honestly. Like just a good pour over, maybe a little bit of honey or raw
Yeah,
sugar, but yeah.
I love it. That's so fun. Okay, you said you love talking about the Lord, and so we can just dive straight into that. What did that look like growing up, pursuing the Lord, into now in college and in the post grad now?
Yeah, obviously love any opportunity to talk about the Lord and like what he's done in my life, especially because my testimony is it's not like it's anything new, but it's definitely not like I always say it's not like an aha moment that I had with the Lord where like he changed my life in an instant. I didn't grow up in a super religious family.
Yeah,
Most of my family are believers, but we didn't go to church. I went every so often with my best friend and her family.
mm,
And so I was kind of introduced to the Lord a little bit growing up, but it
yeah,
was very surface level. And so really I found the Lord probably around age 20, I would say.
yeah,
But it's all these like little moments when I look back and I would like, I knew God in high school, again, just very surface level, and I would have like little prayers. But I look back and the Lord has met me in so much and in so many seasons of my life.
yeah.
So I say it's like this roller coaster, and now I feel like I'm finally like just kind of going along with him, and so that's been really cool. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And I think at FCA the other night we at school we like talked about like the prioritizing the local church, and I think that is just like really interesting. Um hearing different stories of people growing up and maybe not going to church, maybe going to church, and what that looks like to prioritize meeting with fellow believers. Um and often for me, if I, like, don't get to go to church on Sunday, like, I feel like my whole week is messed up,
Hmm.
because we're created to be in community
Yeah.
and with other believers, and we need people to walk alongside with, to learn with, and so I think that's, a really interesting part of your story of, not always having that, but then to, like, be able to prioritize who Jesus is in that, um, and then just to see how he's been faithful. Do you have anything that comes to mind when you say, like, little ways he's been faithful that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, there are like little ways, and then there are also huge ways that the Lord has showed up for
Like,
me. I guess in high school, I had, high school drama. You kind of like lose your friends for a little bit. Not sure if that's a common experience, but for me, that was my experience. And I just remember being so depressed and like so lost in that season because my friends are really truly my family. I'm from a small town, so like we've known each other our whole lives, right? And when I lost my friends, I was like, who am I? Going through a huge identity crisis and just a lot of loneliness. And trigger warning, very serious mental health talk here, was like deeply considering, no, I wasn't gonna, commit suicide, but I was like to that point of depression
Yeah.
and just like a low point. And I was like, Lord, like Jesus, if you don't want me to do this, like I need you to just like reach out to me and like tell me. And I am not even kidding. I think a couple days after that, my nephew, who was, gosh, he would have been maybe 4 at the time,
Yeah.
unbuckled his car seat, like the intricate little buckle,
Yep.
got up in the, like, on the little, what's it called?
The console?
The console. He got up on the console and he was like, May, I want you to live. And immediately I was like, why would you say that? Like, so out of context, so random. He just got back in his car seat and got buckled again. And I was like, whoa. Okay, so that's kind of when I started to really see the Lord and like know that there was more than just like every church every once in a while or a whispered prayer when I wanted things. But my walk with the Lord did not really start being consistent until I was like 20, 21 years old. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
is so cool. And I think just that phrase, like, I want you to live, really from somebody you love, and that's little, like,
Mhm.
always feels so special and so much more important. But just how the Lord can use that, but also how, like, the Lord is also calling us to live.
Mhm.
And it just, like, reminded me of that. Like, we're called to live for Him. And it's more than what you just said. Going to church every once in a while or whispering a prayer when we want.
Mhm.
To live for Christ is this, like, dying to yourself daily, this act of
Yeah.
surrender. But then the joy and the fruit that comes from it, because then you're truly living. Like, when you
Yeah.
die to the things of the world and you um, really decide to surrender what the world has to offer and look in and dive into who Jesus is and what He has to offer, that's where life is truly found.
Yeah.
And when life is found in Him, then there comes joy and peace. Um, and just a purpose. But a big part of my story is very similar to that. I, like, wouldn't have said that I would have, like, actually committed suicide, but my suicidal thoughts were very intense,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
it just felt like the easier thing to do. And that was, like, a big part of my story in high school, just, like, last year. But I think that, like, I needed a thing like that. I was like, "Lord, like, I know this is not what I'm supposed to do. Like, I know the truth of who you
Mhm.
are and that life really is found in you, but I don't know how my brain is supposed to stop." Um, and I just remember I wrote about this in the book, but I was sitting at my bathroom floor and I was just, like, sobbing, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't like, I'm not gonna do anything, but I don't know what.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna, um, keep living. I'm like, I don't even know what to do. And my Alexa started playing Rescue by Lauren Daigle, and it was, like, the craziest moment of life, because in the back of my head, the Lord was like, "No, like, I have more to show you, like, I have more to offer, like, don't give up on me yet, like,
Mhm.
this is not your choice to just give up when things get hard." And but then that song came on, and the Lord, like, is gracious and kind in little ways like that, where He's just like, "Keep going." Like,
He's so faithful to like meet us in those moments too, and that's like a huge part of my testimony again is like him just like meeting me in those moments where I needed it so badly and him showing up every single time.
and I think, something that I've been learning is, like, He does meet us in the moment every single time, like you said, but sometimes when He meets us is not where we expected Him to.
Mhm.
And so then it's easy to be like, "Well, He didn't meet me then, or He didn't meet me here."
Yep.
But He actually, like, is meeting us where we are, um, and, like, we're called to come as we are in that. And I
Yeah.
think it's really interesting just to, like, open my heart, and I've just been praying, like, "Lord, like, remind me that it's from you, and I'm asking for these certain things, but, like, you're gonna meet me where you are and provide what I need in this moment, even
Mhm.
I think I need." Like, I think I needed this, this, and this when I got to college.
Yeah.
And Lord, the past, like, couple weeks, I've been like, "You actually don't need that right now. Like, your heart is not ready to have a boyfriend. You can't do this. Like, let's just, like, spend the season of being friends,
Yeah.
being kind to people, being gentle." Um, And not saying that's not gonna come, I don't know when, but just, like, little things, and then it's like, but he's still meeting me here where I am, even if it's not what I expected.
Right.
So, I think
Yeah.
that's been something that's been hard to learn, but it's really sweet that he meets us where
Yeah.
we are, he meets us in the moment. Okay, I had another question for you, now I forgot it because I got myself distracted. Um, okay, so you started when in your 20s. Were there people like, really pursuing the Lord? Like, I think a lot of people's stories are similar to yours in this fact of, like, sort of following Jesus, like, knowing there is a God, probably believing in the God there is, but, like, really knowing him, um, and allowing yourself to be known by him. But, like, were there people pouring into you in college that kind of got you from one step to the next?
Yeah, no. That's where I'm like, the Lord was so faithful to me in that season. Out of my friends, like, most of them are believers now, and so I was always like the believer. I like talked about God more than my friends, but when I was in college, I moved in with random people.
Yeah,
Half of my house was Jewish, and so like there was no motivation from their side, and then a couple of my other roommates were just complete opposite in their beliefs and everything. And so I got to college, and my college experience in and of itself is like the Lord doing his work,
yeah,
because I originally went to Butler University, which is a small private university in Indiana. Couldn't
yeah,
afford it, moved home, and then COVID hit, so I was at home for a year.
yeah,
Not where I wanted to be. I was just going to like a community college
yeah,
in my hometown, and went through a really bad breakup, like crazy, crazy story from this alone. And then the Lord was like, I want more for you. And I was like, maybe Ohio State. Like, my friends were all going to beauty school in Columbus. I was like, I would at least know people. I thought for sure when I applied for a transfer that they were going to deny me because I did not have the greatest grades in college beginning to start out with. But I got accepted, and like everything just followed. So like my housing, how I paid for it, literally everything the Lord just provided for me.
yeah,
And I didn't even recognize that back then. Like I had no clue that was the Lord doing that. But I went to Ohio State, and I was just curious about that community. I had seen like other people having like close relationships with God, and then other believers and what their lives looked like. And actually a girl from my hometown was at Ohio State,
yeah,
similar college story, and she was attending Delight.
yeah,
And it's a women's ministry on several campuses now, but they were at Ohio State, and they were
yeah,
like, just come. It doesn't matter like who you are, like
right.
where you're from, just come, you're invited. And so I was like, you know what, I'll just try it. And that ministry like truly changed my life and introduced me to the Lord in like real and like deep and intimate ways. So
That is
yeah.
incredible. Okay, side note, hold on, I'm getting off my shelf. I'm reading this right now in my feels,
Yep.
and I didn't know it was, like, by the girls, like, that started Delight until literally today. Like,
Mhm.
today, they're like, "Hey, by the way," and Furman has a Delight too, which is really sweet. I think, um, that there's, like, a really sweet part of your story, in the fact that at the beginning, it wasn't other people pushing you to it. Like, it truly and the Lord pursues everyone, and sometimes he
Mhm.
pursues people using other believers,
Yeah.
um, but sometimes he just, like, grabs hold of your heart in such an intimate way, and I think that's really sweet that that's a part of your story, and I think that's really hopeful too, um,
Mhm.
because I know a lot of people who I'm like, they're not surrounded by believers right now, and that, like, my
Yeah.
control side is like, "Oh, no," but that the Lord is in full control, and He's sovereign, and He's got them, and so I think that's really sweet, that your story is just, like, you and the Lord for a while, and then getting plugged in is so
Mhm.
and just, like, you're invited, like, Jesus is
Yeah.
inviting us and to invite other people to into that and, like, live life with Him, but this, like, study in my feels how to feel God when I'm not feeling it is, like, something I've been struggling with recently. I feel like
Yeah.
I've been in just, like, a spiritual, like, exhaustion is really all I can describe it as,
Mhm.
and it's not that I don't know who God is, and it's not that I'm not surrounded by people who know who God is, but it's just this, like, feeling weary. Um,
Yeah.
and I think the Lord has been gracious to me in this and met me where we are. But just a lot of reminding, like, my faith is not my feelings.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's been for, like, 4 or 5 months now that I've just been feeling just so tired, but in this, I've just learned, like, to keep picking up my Bible every day and keep having these conversations that are centered around the Lord and keep talking to God and, like, honestly telling him how I feel. Not like,
Mhm.
"Hey, like, this is so funny, like, ha, ha, ha." It's like, "No, this is
Yeah.
so hard, Lord. Like, I'm gonna feel you. I wanna feel your presence." Um,
Mhm.
but just, like, going back to being reminded that, like, I believe in the truth of the gospel, and sometimes my heart is going to fail, and sometimes I'm not going to feel the spiritual high, or I'll be in places where I'm like, I feel like I really should just be feeling the spirit so much right now, but I'll just be feeling dull. Um, and so I really like that you brought up delight, because that's something that I've just been praying about sharing in that, and now trying to do the study just to work through different emotions to see, where some things are stemmed from
Mhm.
and how the Lord gave us these emotions for a purpose and that they can be used well when we learn about them and use them well, obviously. So, I think that's really interesting. And I think that's so special that delight was such an important thing in your walk,
Yeah.
and then to find community there. So it's
Yeah.
really,
I think that the Lord, like I said, I've always known him, but I think in the past couple of years of my life, he like really took me by the hand and was like, all right, let's like actually do this. Like, let's learn how to walk and be faithful to me because I'm faithful to you always. And it's been a lot of like learning who God is. You know, I did not grow up in the church, so I don't have that background. I don't have like all the context for the Bible that I need or that most people get as children. And so the Lord was like, let's go. Like, we're going to do this for real. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. So, yeah.
that's so cool. And just once again, showing where life is found, just like what your nephew said, like, I
Yeah.
want you to live. And the Lord was like, hey, I want you to live
Yeah.
and follow me. And I think what's really comforting in that and what you're saying is like, he's not just like a far off God that's like, hey, follow me, follow these rules, do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
It's, hey, let me walk with you in this. And obedience is going to follow. And sometimes you have to sacrifice the things of the world and
Mhm.
choices. For the world, you can't live one foot in and one foot out. But Jesus is like, hey, the narrow road is the way to go. And this is how
Mhm.
you do it. And he like offers to walk with us. And I think that's really sweet. And I feel like that's evident um, in how you're speaking about Jesus.
Yeah.
And just like the light that like reflects from you of who he is just like clearly he's leading you um, to the narrow road of sometimes it's hard, but it's going to be worth it because Jesus is where life is found. And one day in heaven, it's going to be so worth it. Um, so I think that's special. And just the difference of like knowing about God and like knowing him.
Knowing him. Yeah.
Relationship is cool. So I love that.
Yeah, it's 1,000% worth it. I think about like even at the beginning of college when I was like walking with the Lord, but I was still living in a lot of sin.
Yeah.
I think about like all my prayers of being like, God, I want to be confident and I want to be like, I want to live for you and just like all these prayers. And he was like, he responds with, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Like, you have to follow me and really like lean into me. He's like, I'm after your heart. And unless you give that to me, you're still going to struggle with these things. And so a lot of surrender has happened for me also over the last several years. But the Lord, he's just gracious and he really just wants your heart. And so when we give that to him, and like you said, like emotion sometimes comes out of that. When we give him all of that, he is so faithful and loving, and he doesn't say, keep your emotions away from me. He like wants them. He wants your whole heart. So yeah.
That's so good. Um, that is so good. Just that, what you just said. I like feel like I need to go back when I listen to this. I'm writing that down. That is like just like fully surrendering to him in that. And I really do think that is true. Then we'll wrap this up. But the confidence and like all of these things, like praying for these things and realizing they're not coming. It's like, oh, why? I'm trying this. I'm trying this. It's like stop and surrender.
Yeah.
And all of these things are going to be found in him. So
I was really just like looking for them in the wrong places. And then
yeah,
the Lord was like, here's my hand. Just take my hand. I'm going to
yes,
show you where to find it.
gosh, that's so good. And to accept that invitation to take his hands.
Yeah.
Because I think we all
That's
do that.
literally all we have to do.
So, yeah. And we're all quick to try to find satisfaction and joy and peace and acceptance in
Yeah.
places that we're not called to, but it's really easy to because it, especially in college and maybe even in postgrad there, it's like what feels like it's handed to us
Mhm.
almost is the things of the world. But just to like grab his hands and
Yeah.
realize he's like right in front of us this whole time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, and giving so much wisdom. I'm so excited for everyone to listen. I'm just feeling like so um, encouraged right now just by your words and your heart for the Lord. And so, thank you for doing what you're doing and sharing.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Like I said at the beginning of this, I'm just always eager to like share what the Lord is doing
Yeah.
and also share my like non-traditional testimony because someone else is probably out there walking with the Lord in a similar way
Yeah.
and he's just waiting for them to like accept the invitation
So,
and truly live for him. So, thank you for having me.
of course. And thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye.